it out that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 594th edition of Energy Week with George Harvey and Nancy Wolf. Why don't you show us on the screen? There you go.
My first time technical directing here.
There you go.
And there we go.
And you're doing an excellent job.
Thank you so much.
Okay. This show is an aggregation of news that comes from my blog, which itself is an aggregation of news. I post every day. I basically go through searches, and I start with, ABC News, CNN, Clean Technica, and then I just do a general search on energy and then on nuclear energy. And, I can go through 300 titles in one day. But I do the blog every day. It's called geoharvey.com, geoharvey.com, and then it gets put into a website that we use for preparing for this show. Nancy doesn't like computers, so she's doing this from paper, which is fine. I absolutely understand it. And that aggregated site is on the description page. That is, actually, it's on the description, which for most viewers will be below this on the screen, so that you can go down, you can click on it, and you can see just the articles that we're talking about, together with links to the originals. Or you can go to geoharvey.com and take a look at what's there, and I will keep you, or we will keep you apprised of the dates these things come from. Click on the date on the calendar, and then there's, every day I have usually almost always 3 stories for each day for this show, but they come from usually 15 articles, so you would have to look through that. Anyway, we'll start.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put this picture up. This is an operational asset. That is the term that was used. It looks like a solar farm and a wind farm and whatever else they stuck there. This article is from Renews. Are you going to read the titles? Okay,
yeah.
we still have to work out who's reading what.
Well, so European Energy turns sod on Latvian solar.
Yeah, European Energy is beginning construction of what will be one of Latvia's biggest solar farms at 148 megawatts. That's big solar farm. But anyway, the solar farm will be connected to the grid by the end of 2025. They happen fast all over the world. Latvia has ambitious climate goals with a long history of hydropower, but its solar potential is largely untapped. Have you got anything to say about that?
I mean, besides cool, I think, last week, because I had remembered this article last week we were on, unfortunately, as I had read it already, but it's very interesting.
The thing that's interesting to me is that Latvia is a country that borders on Estonia and Finland and Russia. It's across the Baltic Sea from Sweden. This is pretty far north. And they're putting up solar panels because, of course, during the summer, if they've got those solar panels put up properly, they're going to be getting a lot of energy from them. During the winter, they don't get so much. But, that's the way it is. And the other thing is, this business of hydropower, one of the countries that is essentially 100% renewable energy is Albania. Who would have thought that? But they've, Years ago, the communist government put up hydropower stations, and they've been dealing with that ever since. And so they're one of the big renewable countries. Okay, should we go on?
Yeah, let's go on.
We have a picture of a truck. Goodness, that happened by itself. Switching.
Oh, yes, yes.
Okay.
Volvo Trucks pushes for price on carbon emissions.
Yeah, this is not a surprise. At present, Volvo Trucks is leading the electric truck sector with 51% market share in Europe and 40% in the United States. You know, there are certain things that I always tell people, you don't know what it means unless you know what it means. And a 40% market share of trucks in the United States, electric trucks, that doesn't mean they sold more than a couple. However, let me continue. In the first half of 2024, over 2,500 electric trucks were delivered in Europe, and more than half were from Volvo Trucks. The company is, unsurprisingly, pushing for an emissions price. They want to put up carbon emissions. So how are you going to control that?
Oh, I just did. I just did. Yeah.
Cool. We see a slightly different screen than the viewers do.
Yeah.
Anyhow, there it is. And I see that there is a missing link on this article. So you probably didn't read the article.
I remember no, I didn't read the article, but we also talked about them last week too.
Yeah, we probably did.
Yeah.
The name Clean Technica was attached, but the actual link to the Clean Technica article was not in the site that we're working on. Anyway, I guess we're going to have to move on from there. Mm-hmm. We have a picture of Tucson, or as some people say, Tucson.
Oh, I see.
ABC News brought us this.
Oh, I accidentally skipped a page.
There you go.
It says historic October heat in the West made possible by climate change.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about attribution science. A record-setting late season heat wave is in effect in the West. Now this was last Thursday, a week ago, and things have changed a bit since then. Partly due to human-caused climate change, October temperature records were broken in major cities, some with triple-digit heat. Palm Springs reached on October 3rd, on October 2nd, this was reported on October 3rd, 117 degrees Fahrenheit. Phoenix hit 113 and Tucson hit 105. You ready for this? I'm not ready for this. Not 117 degrees on the 3rd of October.
I have a friend who was visiting, cutting back to us, who was visiting from Tucson and came here a few weeks ago, and she was dreading, and she said, well, winter comes. Winter's going to come, and it's going to get down below the 90s, and that. So, yeah, sad.
I used to work in a factory where I operated chemical kilns, and the room that I worked in was about 115 degrees. And the room that I cooled off in was 103, something like that, with a fan going. And the reason why the temperatures were so high was because it was very, very hot outside. And on Friday, I went in and it was hot. And it was hot all day. And I walked out into 82 degrees or something like that, because the heat had gone away, and I felt like I was in a refrigerator. So, yeah. Okay, we're up to Friday, October 4th, and I've got a picture of transmission system, transmission lines. This is from Renews.
And that's the Department of Energy invests $1.5 billion in grid schemes.
Yeah, the US Department of Energy announced funds totaling $1.5 billion with a B in 4 transmission projects being developed by the American Council on Renewable Energy members. They will enable nearly 1,000 miles of power lines and 1.7 gigawatts of new capacity in Louisiana, Maine, Mississippi, New Mexico, Oklahoma, and Texas. Now, one thing that the person who wrote this didn't know at the time it was being written is that at the same time this person was writing it, the state legislature in Louisiana had shivved, was the way it was reported, Texas by following up their plans to have a transmission line from Mississippi to Texas through Louisiana, and they shut it down. Now they may have undone that, I don't know, but that's one thing. The other thing is, I really want to say this. The idea that we're putting this kind of money into transmission lines makes me a little upset, because we shouldn't be doing that, I don't think. I think we should be going for distributed energy, where we are producing energy for a location at the location. So Vermont should be producing its own energy, and Northern Vermont should be producing its own energy, and Southern Vermont should be producing its own energy. We could do that. And it would mean that we would not need all these transmission lines. And it would mean that it would cost a lot less. And, various people, Mark Jacobson, who's a professor at Stanford, said basically, he laid out how all states could have their own systems dependent on what was in the state. Why do we need these transmission lines? And the answer to that is, I think it's because of 2 things. One of which is that the people who are running renewable energy systems and so forth are operating in an old business plan. Mm-hmm. And the other one is, there's a lot of money to be made on this stuff, and anytime you throw money around, there's always some way to siphon some off. So, I think nuclear benefits from that too.
Yeah.
Both of those, as a matter of fact. But I have a solution for nuclear. I don't have a solution for this, except to say maybe we shouldn't do that. The solution for nuclear? Simple. Don't ever build a nuclear power plant unless you have put out competitive bids for renewable energy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, should we go on?
Yeah, let's go on.
What happened here?
Oh, what happened here?
I don't know.
There we go. There we go.
Don't touch that computer.
Okay,
That's
will not.
me, not you. Okay, our next item is from Clean Technica, and we have a picture of a Volkswagen ID.7.
Yeah, Volkswagen ID.7 Pro S covered 794 kilometers on one battery charge.
That's a lot of mileage.
It is.
Driving the electric ID.7 Pro S, Volkswagen Team Switzerland, headed, if I'm going to say Volkswagen, I shouldn't say Switzerland, should I? I should say Der Schweiz. Anyway.
It's just fun to say Volkswagen.
Yeah, it is. Headed by Felix E-Golf, an expert in long-distance driving with electric cars, successfully covered a total of 794 kilometers, which is 493 miles, on a single battery charge in a driving time of 15 hours and 42 minutes. That is not the time from the beginning to the end. That's the time that the car was actually being driven. I'm sure that he stopped for breaks here and there. Oh,
right. As a human, just,
yeah.
He
probably wanted a, McDonald's burger.
Yeah. The thing I was thinking about with this one was that that's a big deal for Americans
Yeah.
to think about, because that's what people are, one of the things that people are worried about is if I go on a trip, on a highway trip, will I be able to plug in? How will I be able to get there?
Yeah.
So
That's how it works. And if you've ever driven, through Manhattan, you might feel the same range anxiety because you're not going to find a gas station.
Yes, that is also correct, and it will be a lot more expensive.
Yes, it will.
I have
Okay.
experience.
Our next issue is Hurricane Helene. Now, we're still working with Hurricane Helene here.
Yep.
Milton is currently leaving more water on Florida, but this is Helene. This story is from Clean Technica.
It's storms, flooding, and extreme heat will transform the American South.
Hurricane Helene dumped 4 feet of rain on parts of North Carolina, leading to devastating floods in places like Asheville. Asheville was the climate change capital of the United States, because it had universities and laboratories and all kinds of stuff like that about climate change. And people moved there to get away from climate change storms, and this is what happened. Places like Asheville were considered safe havens, but we should have seen it coming. The average surface temperature of the Gulf of Mexico is 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Clean Technica was the only place I saw where they said it was 90 degrees. Other places said it was 88. In either case, it's hot.
It's hot.
And what happened here was Helene went almost straight north, and when it got to the Appalachians, and this is something that happens. You have a storm that's saturated with water, hit a mountain area, it pushes the storm upwards, which means that it cools off, which means that it dumps the water. Now, 4 feet of rain, that's kind of a lot. But Asheville is in a sort of a valley. So where was that rain going to go? Now there are people who are involved in conspiracy theories who say the government actually did this on purpose.
Right.
Okay.
Well, if I may.
Please do.
If I may. So.
Yeah. Why don't you put us up so people can see us
I could probably do that. I think I'll do that. Yes, so people can see us.
Yes.
But one of the things that I've been reading about with Helene, and and there's other issues coming up, but with Helene, all these sorts of labor issues happen when there's a natural disaster, and companies don't plan all of these things, and so they have workers, and so there were 11 workers that were swept away at a plant in Tennessee, and
it got me upset when I saw that.
Yeah. No, it got me upset too, but it's like, why is this not, disaster planning is really important.
Yes.
And it has to go at all levels.
Yes, that's right. And one of the things, these people in Tennessee who ran that plant probably said, well, we're hundreds of miles from the sea. Why should we worry about it? And it makes me think of what was the storm that hit Vermont and it didn't hit anybody else. I feel like saying Isabel, but it wasn't Isabel. It was, my age is showing. We got hit hard here.
Yeah.
And I was seeing
Irene,
yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was seeing rain coming down that was I don't think it was the heaviest I've ever seen. I used to live in Illinois, and I remember looking out the window and seeing horizontal rain. That's not good. But the rain was just incredible. And I remember looking out the window and thinking, what's happening up in Marlboro? Because they're at a higher elevation, and I saw the whetstone, and it was just unbelievable how much water was coming down the whetstone. And yeah, Why would it hit Vermont? Vermont isn't close to the ocean. It didn't make a mess out of Connecticut or New York or Massachusetts.
No, you had to wait till Sandy for that one.
Yeah, but Sandy had its own weirdness.
Yeah.
Sandy went around and didn't bother Vermont that much.
No, it didn't. It didn't. Those two were and they came very close to each other.
Okay, we're up to Saturday, October 5th, and we have a picture of a guy working in the dark.
Yeah.
But he's got light because he's got a flashlight and he's got a sewing machine he's running, which looks like it's probably not treadle, and this is from Clean Technica.
Well, we're thinking about climate reparations.
Yes. The idea that we might even think of making climate reparations for our releases of greenhouse gases fills me with horror. But what if we designed a kit that would be the basis for a solar microgrid? And what if we built them and gave them away to people all over the world? Basically anybody who asks for one, regardless of where they live. So if people in China ask for kits like this, we'd give them to the people in China. But they're targeted first for people who have no electricity. What would that do for us? Where would that put us? And there it is.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I have the thing that I was going to say about this is that I think that I mean, it doesn't fill me with horror about the climate reparations. It doesn't fill me with horror. It makes me think about responsibility and paying for what you've done.
The truth be told, it fills only part of me with horror.
Yeah.
A small part compared to the other. I think we should do this. I think we should make a billion of these kits, put $1 trillion into it, and that sounds like a lot of money, but you know, it reminds me of Everett Dirksen, who used to say, this is back when, I don't know, who was president? Maybe Lyndon Johnson, but Everett Dirksen said $1 billion here, $1 billion there. Pretty soon you're talking about real money.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and incidentally, that, just in case anybody's interested, I wrote that story, so I'm going to have to take the blame for it.
Yeah.
Okay, we're up to a story from ABC News about Claudia Sheinbaum.
Yeah. Mexico's new president promises to resume fight against climate change.
This is the first female president of Mexico, the first Jewish president of Mexico. What do you expect out of this? In her first days as Mexico's new president, Claudia Sheinbaum made a point of distancing herself from fossil fuel reliance promoted by her predecessor, Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador, and vowed it would resume an energy transition that he had halted. Now, he was basically the guy who was pushing her into office. So
it's very confusing, AMLO,
yeah.
as we call him, AMLO.
AMLO?
But to make it, he had, there was some promise with him, but I think about I brace myself when I think about things like this because hope is so hard. Hope is so painful when it's not, delivered, like when the promises aren't delivered.
Yeah.
And it's so needed. Right, and it's so needed. So
yes.
I hopefully that the action is made and kept. As I just think about, us and all of these, switching between these presidents and how we'll have policy and then we won't have policy. And thinking about how to make it last. Yeah,
with her, I think this is probably going to be a permanent change because one of the things that underscores the change that really speaks to it is the fact that renewable energy is now so inexpensive that it's hard to justify maintaining fossil fuels. And,
yeah.
There it is.
Yeah.
Okay, our next item is from Renews. This is a jack-up platform in the Baltic.
Let's see. So interesting. The PKN Orlen completes first onshore link for Baltic Power. This super connects with other.
PKN Orlen confirmed that it had made the first onshore connection for the 1,200 megawatt Baltic Power wind farm in Poland. The first of 4 directional drills under the coastline, beach, and seabed was successfully completed with no direct impact on areas of high ecological value, according to the company. That picture is a picture of a jack-up platform, which is, I think, I might be wrong, basically not a ship, it's a barge, but it has the jack-up, the ability, and it is doing horizontal drilling. So they're having cables running under the seabed.
I did that. I was like, let me try to do this in a.
Okay. Should we go on, or do you have something to say?
I was going to say that I think there's incredible creative possibilities here.
Oh, yeah.
That's just, I was so.
You don't have to worry about your local whale getting electrocuted.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Let's switch.
Our next picture is alternative energy, in this case, wind power. This is from a publication called The Independent.
As the era of coal comes to an end, how close is the UK to 100% clean energy?
Yeah, the UK was the first in the world to generate electricity from coal. Now it's the first major economy to phase it out completely. Such a rapid transition is only possible due to the rise of alternative electricity sources that are capable of meeting rising demands.
The UK can show us the way.
Yeah. I see this and I think about the fact that my great-grandfather, who was kind of a nut, in not a bad way, decided that he was going to have electricity in his home. And he was one of the wealthier people in the place where he lived, which was Plattsmouth, Nebraska. And he had electricity in his house before anybody else in town did. And he had a source, which was basically a battery that got charged by changing out the chemicals in it. And he had a farm, and one of the farm hands would come in and once a week change these chemicals. So, anyway, what do we got next? Oh, we have a solar-powered aircraft and an article from Clean Technica.
AV successfully flight tests new solar-powered aircraft.
An upgraded Sunglider was tested by AeroVironment, showing off improved high-altitude platform station capabilities. The result is Horus A, which is a new version of Sunglider for government applications. This sounds scary, doesn't it? The Horus,
yep.
The Horus A is capable of carrying payloads of up to 150 pounds.
No people yet, is what I wrote.
No people yet. What are they going to do with that?
What are they carrying of 50 pounds?
I don't know. I can tell you it's not me, but okay, should we go on?
Yeah, let's go.
All right, let's go on. This is a picture of Cannon Falls, and it is from a publication. The picture is not from the publication, but the article is from a publication called Hoodline. And what do you have for title?
Yeah, it's Dakota County's Bilesby Dam modernization to double renewable energy output, securing Cannon Falls energy needs.
So this is the town that is having its energy needs secured. Cannon County's Bilesby Dam, a central old structure, has recently completed a significant upgrade that promises to double its renewable energy output as local leaders and partners congregate to mark the milestone. I'm a little bit fascinated by hydropower because it is so obvious that we've got to get rid of it in some places. But one thing that environmentalists don't talk about very much is that we have to keep it in other places. And for multiple reasons. A friend of mine was involved in a project that was supposed to tear down a dam in Massachusetts. And he figured out that if they tore the dam down, the silt behind it that had built up contained really toxic stuff.
Right, yeah.
And if it got loose, it would poison the Connecticut River all the way to the Long Island Sound.
Right, so like any old site, remediation.
Yeah. And some of the dams that we have, particularly in Vermont, are not there because of energy. They're there because we want not to flood Springfield, Massachusetts. You know, the rain that falls, particularly, you know, when Imelda came, there you go. We had an extremely high amount of water running down. And if you ever drive around Springfield, Massachusetts, you'll see that the interstate is built high, and some of the roads are built high, yeah. and the roads that go under it go through underpasses that are
I've done this so many times. Yeah,
strange,
yep,
and
yep.
the whole thing is so they can use those roads as levees, and you know. We've as human beings, we've made a mess out of the environment, and you know we have to deal with being wise and not just.
No, I mean, to me, I see this as, oh, okay, that's really wonderful. How cute! I mean, I wrote cute. This is cute. This is sweet. This
yeah,
is.
It is
this
actually.
It's how is could we do this right?
Yeah, but. Not all dams should be removed. Anyway, we're up to Monday, October 7th, and we have a picture of sleek black solar windows.
This is the thing that excited me today. It's happening.
Yeah.
See-through solar windows kick fossil energy to the curb.
Yeah, this is from Clean Technica.
Amazing.
What?
Amazing.
Amazing, yes it is. The age of fossil fuels is drawing to a close, and solar windows are coming to help. The solar window is engineered to let daylight in while also catching solar energy and generating electricity. The technology is maturing and poised for widespread adoption. Now, the thing that impresses me about this is if you look at the solar cell that's in those windows, it looks like glass.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't see wires running through it and stuff like that.
No.
They've got to the point where it's just glass. A little bit more expensive than normal window glass, but nonetheless, there it is.
I mean, this image to me looks like New York City.
Yeah.
And you could power the city.
Yeah, I don't know if you could power the whole city, but you could get a lot of energy out of it.
Well, there's so many, as someone who lived there before, there's so many of these glass buildings that are built constantly. That's the things that come up next are always these bizarre glass buildings.
Yes. Yeah.
It could be made out of this glass.
Yeah, it could. Okay. Now we've got, I love this one coming up. A very happy looking local shopkeeper. This is also from Clean Technica.
It's a new 200 kilowatt solar PV, 915 kilowatt hour battery mini grid brings electricity to Hakwaka village.
We always hear that over 600 million people in Africa, we talked about that just a minute ago, have no access to electricity, and that close to 1 billion have no access to clean cooking. With the right business model and funding, hundreds of gigawatt hours of capacity can be installed in African countries. You know, my brother, by the way, my younger brother, he goes all over the world pushing an invention of his, which makes him absolutely no money. And the reason why it makes no money is because he's got a patent on it, but in order for a person to what is the word, infringe on that patent, all he's got to do is be a village potter. And he can make what my brother invented for like $3. That's the retail's price.
Yeah.
And what he invented was a filter that filters water and gets rid of all the living pathogens. And, you know, the government of Bangladesh took water from the Ganges River, put it through the filter, and found that it had a bacteria count of 0. And this is something that anybody could do. Do we do it? In order to do it, we've got to show how somebody can make money with it. In the absence of that, we have people in Africa who have no access to clean cooking. If they had access to clean water, they'd have access to clean cooking. Yeah. And here we're talking about mini grids and microgrids and things like that. This is distributed power. It's what we should be doing.
Yes, yes, definitely.
And those people should have an easier life, and it's not that, you know, my bleeding heart is bleeding all for them, but that's what it does.
It does that.
Okay,
that's
now we have a very boring picture of a map, which, by the way, is in the Heligoland Bight. B-I-G-H-T is a thing that isn't a bay, but it wants to be.
Well, so the headline is RWE Total Energies forge German offshore JV.
Yeah, they're saying a joint venture. RWE and Total Energies have agreed to develop jointly 2 offshore wind projects with a total capacity of 4 gigawatts. The amount of capacity that's being installed is stunning, but it's only about 2/3 of what we need. To this end, Total Energies will acquire 50% equity stake in the projects from RWE. The projects are roughly 110 kilometers to 115 kilometers northwest of the German island of Borkum, and that island can be seen on the map. And you know, that means that if you're on Borkum and you're looking for this thing, you're going to miss it 100%. It's going to be below the horizon because of the. Okay.
So I had a question. Why so much? Why do you think there's so much innovation here going on with these offshore plugins and offshore? We've had a few stories today about it, and I was just curious why you think there's so much going on.
Right now, the Europeans are really reacting to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And when this invasion of Ukraine is something that I believe is entirely based on energy.
Right.
Russia was exporting, 2/3 of Russia's exports were fossil fuels. And the Russians were sitting there looking at what the Europeans were doing, and they were seeing that they kept putting in wind farms and solar farms and things like that, and they had promised that they were going to cut their fossil fuel use, and that meant that they were going to cut Russia's market.
Yep.
So I think Boris Yeltsin invaded Ukraine to stir up the pot.
You mean other guy, Putin.
Boris Yeltsin.
Putin.
Boris is a good Russian name, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a nice one. It's a nice one.
Yeah, yeah. But Putin invaded Ukraine, I think, in order to stir up the pot. And he did it at a point where the Germans were shutting down their last nuclear power plants.
Yeah.
And I think that his calculation was, Europeans, I've got them in my pocket. They can't try to stop me, because if they do, I'll just cut off the Nord Stream. And then what happened was the Americans came along and said, well, we can do fracking, and that means that we can send lots of natural gas. And that's what we did.
Yep.
Well, on their part, the Germans and everybody on the Baltic area, including Sweden, and Denmark and all the countries up and down there, Norway, they all started installing offshore wind like mad. And one of the things about offshore wind, unlike nuclear, it's really fast to install. Mm-hmm. I mean, I saw one that was installed off, one wind farm installed off the coast of Wales, and this was like a 495 megawatt wind farm. And I don't remember how big the wind turbines were. They might have been 5 megawatts, but they were just going in every day, another wind turbine. And so, like in 100 days, they had this whole thing in from the time that they started installing it. Nuclear power plants don't install that fast.
No.
So, and I'm sure somebody's going to say, well, we have small modular reactors now.
Right. Who's working those?
What?
Who's working those? Who's safety? Who is managing the worker safety?
Well, they claim that they can't melt down.
Right. Okay. That's what they isn't that what 3 Mile Islands? They said that 3 Mile Island. They said that in
the early reactors they said it's a 1 in 10,000 chance that what they didn't say is each reactor is a 1 in 10,000 chance each year. So that means if a reactor is going to be there for 40 years, you got a 1 in what, 250, 10,000? The idea that it's going to melt down over the course of its lifetime is probably unacceptably high. But the calculation that I did is that based on the number of reactors that we've got in place worldwide, we should have expected 1 nuclear meltdown in history.
Right.
1. And I can name 11.
Yeah.
So what does it tell you?
Yeah.
Okay, and now we're back to dams. How's that for a river?
Oh.
That's the upper Klamath River, and it's going to have salmon in it. Salmon
swim freely in the Klamath River for the first time in a century after dams removed.
Don't you love this?
I do.
This is from ABC News. The thing is, the Indian tribes in that area have been really upset because the dams were put in to produce electricity, but they were put in without recognition of the fact that without the salmon, they didn't have food.
Yeah.
And there was plenty of salmon. They didn't have a problem with food until the dams were put in. But it's not just Indians in the area who are getting upset about it. It's a lot more than that. And it's not just salmon. It's a lot more than that.
It's complicated. It's very complicated.
It's very complicated. Should these dams have been removed or not? Well, I think they probably should have been. Okay. For the first time in over a century, just days after the largest dam removal project in U.S. history was completed, this was 4 big dams on the Klamath River were all removed, so it is big. Salmon are swimming freely along the Klamath River and its tributaries. The river is a major watershed near the California-Oregon border. This I think is important. It is important. Okay. We should go on.
Yeah.
We have an item from Renews and a picture of people working on a floating wind farm. And by the way, there are people, if you look at that horizontal piece that is on the right, the horizontal yellow bar looking thing, there's a man on that. He's about halfway along it.
Oh, yes, there is. There is.
And,
global floating wind pipeline hits 266
gigawatts. Yes, gigawatts.
Gigawatts.
And Tom always said, gigawatts is bigawatts. Okay, the global, I very often wish, not that I don't like you, it's just that I wish that Tom were here too.
Yeah.
But,
That's why you have 3 computers.
Yeah, absolutely. And the global floating offshore wind project pipeline grew by 9% over the last 12 months to 266 gigawatts, according to Renewable UK report. A year ago, the pipeline stood at 244 gigawatts, and it expanded by 22 gigawatts in the last year. The number of projects increased globally during that time from 285 to 316. Now, this is floating offshore. This is not offshore, which is going to be huge compared to floating offshore. So now they're able to put these wind turbines far out to sea, where they float because the seabed is too far down for them to be anchored on it. Not be anchored on it, be built on it, because they are anchored. They're just okay.
Yeah.
Got anything for that?
My question, it's really my previous one, which was like seeing all these stories together and trying to understand what is the reason. And it sounds, it sounds like war is environmentally damaging.
War is about as damaging to everything as you can get. The worst thing that people can do is get into a war. And, I'm not opposed to our defending ourselves and other people in the Second World War. My father fought in the Second World War from beginning to end. He was the engineering officer on a ship that was in Pearl Harbor when it was bombed.
I think we talked about this because my grandfather was also in Hawaii, and he worked as a medic.
Yeah.
But him and my grandmother lived in Hawaii in 1940. Which is quite incredible.
And my mother had to move out of Hawaii because of mean people who bombed Pearl Harbor. Okay, our next item is a hydrogen fuel cell EVTOL, which is an electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicle. This article is from Clean Technica.
Toyota puts nearly $1 billion into electric aviation startup.
Yeah, Toyota, still the largest automaker in the world, despite the fact that it doesn't have a good handle on how to make electric cars, has announced that it's going to, quote, invest in an additional $500 million to support the certification and commercial production of Joby's electric air taxi, with the aim of realizing the two companies' shared vision of air mobility, end quote.
What I wrote was, That's...
Toyota has been pushing fuel cells instead of batteries, and they just haven't been making progress with it. In this case, they might, because the fuel cells, see, the thing is, you don't have to have hydrogen to run a fuel cell. You can run a fuel cell on ammonia. And I don't know how much chemistry you have. Do you have?
I did take chemistry in high school.
Ammonia is NH3, and as a gas, it's very easy to compress. So you have liquid ammonia. I don't want to be around liquid ammonia. The very idea scares me. But nevertheless, the idea of being around gasoline scares me too.
Yeah, it's not
good.
Okay.
But ammonia can be used to power aircraft, and in the case of Toyota, charging an electric car is so easy that it doesn't make sense to think about ammonia infrastructure. But maybe with aircraft it does. So there might be some sense in doing that. Yeah. Okay, we should probably move on. We're up to Wednesday, October 9th. I really like this picture. Taking a picture out of the window of, I forget what spacecraft it was, but it's in orbit, and some person who's stuck in outer space.
So Hurricane Milton made up to 800 times more likely by hotter water in the Gulf of Mexico.
Yes, and we were talking about attribution science earlier, and this is part of it. A climate central analysis shows that high surface temperatures in the Gulf of Mexico, which fueled the rapid intensification of Hurricane Helene, were made between 400 and 800 times more likely by the climate crisis. So the climate crisis is heating the water. The water is hot enough that it's making hurricanes more powerful. So we're not getting more hurricanes, we're getting more powerful hurricanes. Helene still might have been a hurricane, it might have been a Category 1.
Yeah.
Milton could have been, a hurricane and been a Category 1, but running across the Gulf of Mexico, that is a long ways, and the Gulf of Mexico was 88 degrees above normal. I mean, not above normal, it was 88 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a lot of heat, and that heat produces a column of rising column of air, which is laden with water, and it's not good. So our next item, or you have more?
I have one thing to say again,
say it.
Which is there again with the climate economy, right,
Okay.
or economic aspect. Like, so Floridians are worried. So the ACLU is worried about the prison population and what will happen if they don't evacuate people.
I had not even thought of that. It's a good thing to think about.
And so there's, different, basically the issue is, will they be left behind like after Katrina with the Orleans Parish prison? Like these are, because these are people.
They're
humans.
human beings.
Yeah. And we need to think about this a lot more and a lot quicker.
Yes, we do. We do indeed. Okay, our next item, I had trouble finding this, this is from Clean Technica. I had trouble finding this photograph.
UK to pour $28 billion into carbon capture and storage over 25 years.
Yeah, the UK's new Labour government announced that it will pump 22 billion pounds, which is $28.77 billion, into carbon capture and storage schemes over the next 25 years. The Guardian reports that the move came after a round of high-pressure lobbying by fossil fuel giants.
Exactly.
This is infuriating. These people want to, what?
I'm going to cut to my face, or our faces, because I have an eye roll. Just eye roll. That's
these people want to sell oil. They want to sell gas. They want to sell gasoline. And they know that they're causing a lot of trouble. So they want the government to give them a lot of money to make it into carbon capture so that they can get away with producing the stuff they shouldn't be producing. And,
this is the thing I joke about, is how extremely ridiculous it is. But what are we going to, we're going to have guns and we're going to shoot the climate change? Like this is the science fiction, crazy, we can't possibly just curb anything.
Carbon capture is expensive.
Yeah.
And it's going to be an added cost for the people who use carbon-based fuel to make their electricity. So as solar power and wind power use batteries to store electricity, gas is going to be using carbon capture to store waste. And is that a good exchange? It means that gas, which is already twice as expensive as solar or wind with batteries, is going to have a greater expense producing carbon dioxide that we have to figure out what to do with. So what are we going to do with carbon dioxide?
This sounds like nuclear waste we're talking about.
It almost does. And
Yeah.
some of the stuff that I've read is just astonishingly bad ideas.
Yeah.
Like put a bag on the bottom of the ocean and fill it with carbon dioxide, which is going to be compressed to the point, because you only need six atmospheres of pressure. It'll be compressed to the point that it's a liquid. And that bag is going to last forever? Really? Or how about this? We could take that carbon dioxide and make it into plastics, which then we dump in the ocean.
Right, and then people in Texas have to deal with the waste, right?
That's
The waste.
right.
I mean, someone has to deal with waste.
Okay, we're up to our last item,
which is
which
renewable.
we don't have much time for, but we have a picture of a solar park in Japan.
It's renewable energy to fall short of UN goal to triple by 2030, IEA says. Duh.
Yeah. Renewable energy sources are set to meet nearly half of all electrical demand by the end of the decade. Nevertheless, it will fall short of a UN goal to triple capacity to reduce carbon emissions. A report by the International Energy Agency showed, and this is from the Voice of America. I don't think it's necessarily that bad, because but if we want not to fall short, we're going to have to start absolutely right now. And actually, I think Joe Biden started a couple of years ago, but the United States is so far behind China. It's unbelievable. And it's not just solar panels, it's wind farms, and it's wind turbines, and it's electric vehicles. The biggest electric vehicle maker in the world is not Tesla, it's BYD.
Yep.
You know, I mean, you can go on and on and on. The United States had 650 electric buses when the city of Shenzhen had 17,000 of them. And
where's the will?
The will is being suppressed by the fossil fuels industry and by the nuclear industry, which I think is, you know, trying to say, well, we're the good guys because we're clean.
Okay. I mean, you know.
Nancy, you're making funny noises.
well, you know, I mean, I don't know. We could talk about the Cold War. We could talk about
all kinds of stuff.
Today
in the news, as I was putting today's thing up, there was a question, and the question is the fuel for a small modular reactor going to make it easier for people with the small modular reactor to make a bomb? And the answer to that is almost certainly yes.
Yeah.
And you know, we're playing games that we don't need to play. Why are we playing those games? Because we want a bomb. That's the only excuse I can think of. It's a terrible system, but we really need bombs, nuclear bombs.
We only made 70,000 of them, you know.
Well, you know, we're taking them apart again. We don't. I don't know. I don't know. And the Russians are saying, "Don't you people understand that we can bomb you?" Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
We have a beautiful idea for you, which is have an understandably positive. I can't even say it. You say it.
Understandably positive.
There you go. Have an understandably positive week. We will be back. We hope you are too.